briefly introduce Beyond School Bells as well, although I would imagine a lot of people who see this will be familiar. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. Please give me a thumbs up if and when you see it.
Looks great.
Cool. Okay. Sorry, it's taken a second to get into presenter mode. Can you see the actual presentation, or is it just the presenter's side of the screen?
We're seeing the presenter's side.
I have this problem all the time and I have no idea how to flip it.
I think it may be under display settings at the top, but I'm not sure either.
There we go. Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. Anyways, thank you all for having me. So my name is Dakota Staggs. I work with Beyond School Bells. I like to think of myself as the environmental guy on our team. So my background is environmental studies and natural resource sciences. So that's kind of a lot of what I like to focus on, a lot of what I get to focus on with BSB. You may or may not know, Beyond School Bells is Nebraska's statewide after-school network. So we don't run any after-school programs, but we support them across the state. That goes from standard CLC programs to Boys and Girls Clubs to a couple weeks ago, I got to partner with an organization called Go Beyond. So they do their own unique sort of out of school time programming. So we support all types of programming, but a lot of what you all probably are familiar with is standard after school, school-based programs. So we really try and take advantage of that space being fun and engaging, community connected and supported. And so I really try and model that within our environmental programming. A couple of years ago, and so again, this might also be old news, but in case you have not heard, we came up with what we call our Environmental Conservation Action Program. So that was based on the Lincoln Climate Action Plan that came about, and we watched that come to fruition and thought, why don't we also have a way to organize and distribute and kind of categorize our programming in terms of environmental work that we do and things that we want to support and things that we enjoy and want others to learn about as well. So all of that aims to be hands-on, have at least some outdoor components, student-directed systems development, and has K-12 connections. So a lot of that, so again, there's some of the same, but all of that is for after school and summer programs. So every program is going to be a little bit different, and we really try and cater to that, so that if you have a summer program that only runs for 4 weeks, you can adapt different BSB programs to fit within those 4 weeks. If you have programs that engage students in elementary school as well as middle school, there are also opportunities to sort of mix and match or to scale up or scale down different BSB materials. So we also very much encourage the engagement of older youth, being college students or high school students, in programming. So that's probably something you're familiar with. We say it a lot. But I think it is especially important. I think it's so useful for outdoor programming, just because one of the best things about getting outside is allowing students to spread out. But a caveat of that is students quickly become spread out. So it's very helpful to have some older youth in the mix to be able to help students when they're looking for certain things. If it's doing a bio blitz, maybe helping them find certain species of plants or bugs, things like that. And older youth also get a lot out of it. BSB, and this is kind of one of my first connections to the organization, BSB does a lot for high school and college youth to connect them to outdoor and environmental careers. So we have our conservation management internship, and that's sort of like the pinnacle experience of a lot of our programming. But so much of that is connected to what we try and offer for students from kindergarten up. So within ECAT, we have a lot of themes, but they are oriented around outdoor education being sort of the underlying theme. But things like energy, transportation, environmental systems, food systems has been a huge focus over the last couple of years. If you are in or near Lincoln, you may have heard or potentially visited our freight farm, which is a hydroponic container farm. We've really grown a lot from the idea of that, and sharing grow towers or supporting gardening, indoor or outdoor, a lot with a lot of our partner programs. And ECAP is kind of focused on a lot of that. There are other things as well, though, things like conservation or wildlife biology, um, renewable energy. I think I already mentioned that one, but lots of things. This is just a quick overview of some of those. But we want those, so I skipped over this. I shouldn't have. I've put these things on a grid. But for example, so BioBlitz looks like around third grade. If you saw the bottom bar is grade. BioBlitz isn't exclusive to third grade. That's what I keep it around there, and all of these things are quite malleable. But because we want the experiences to sort of scaffold, whether they are specific to the individual subject or whether they are a culmination of outdoor and environmental programming. So I think a lot of kids will start with planting a seed in a cup, but that doesn't mean that that student can't then also grow into renewable energy. You can make connections there with what students learn about growing food, being outside, the energy of the sun, and connect that to other themes within environmental education. So this is one example of our food systems. So we create a continuum of programming. Again, lots of students, and I think all students, whether they are in kindergarten or a senior year in their last semester of high school, I think planting a seed in a cup is an incredible way to start environmental education. And so we've built a lot of our programming to start on a simple basis like that, to just have students introduce themselves and introduce others to any theme within environmental ed, but then scaffold that up to something like a grow tower or maybe a school garden where students can actually grow their food, participate in choosing and creating, designing their gardens, whatever those might look like, whether it's during the middle of December or January when you can grow it inside with the grow tower, or like right now when I hope, lots of programs have outdoor gardens, and luckily it seems like a lot of them are probably getting a good amount of rain, which is very helpful. But then growing that up then to giving students onus in that process. So I'll talk about this in a little bit, but one way that we have scaffolded this up for the older youth engagement is something like Grow Nebraska, where those students have been involved in planting that seed in a cup. They've been involved in whatever the gardening looks like at their school, whether it's on a windowsill or it's a full-scale school garden. They then can also take a little bit of responsibility and say, I had that experience. This is what I'm really interested in. This is what I might be passionate about, or here's a challenge that I see, and give that student a little bit of authority and kind of some power in the context of their food system that they've seen in school, they've seen in their after school program, and allow them to take it and run with it. So Grow Nebraska allows and challenges older youth to identify those things and pursue them within the context of their after school program. So for example, we had a school and a couple of students identify food packaging waste as a challenge that they saw within their food system. They'd been involved in the gardens in school. But when challenged to think through things that they saw that they wanted to correct around their school and around their community, they noticed lots of food packaging waste. So food wrappers, soda bottles, things like that. And so their solution is to grow more food locally so that you don't need all that packaging waste. And so they were able to put all that project together to incorporate it into the lessons that they were giving to younger students, and are still carrying that forward. They're hopefully going to have a great harvest this fall, and really have a sort of a community culminating event to teach others about what they've learned about in their community, is then pass that on to younger students, to the community itself, and to others. So that's kind of the way that ECAP is structured. Again, ECAP, Environment and Conservation Action Program. A lot of BSV's materials are designed to have that approach. I did also come up with one more example. So a lot of the BSB programming has that frame of reference. It's not all food systems though. I think this can easily apply to conservation. So like I said, BSB has a lot of programming for older youth around conservation. So that can start with a bio blitz for students in kindergarten to third grade, take them outside, show them some different plants. One of my favorite things to do with the BSB curriculum in the bio blitz for the K-3 youth is to just let's write a story about what you see. Give a plant a name, give it a backstory, give it some brothers and sisters, give it an after school program, and students can really let their creativity flow from that. And then you can build up into more in-depth Bible experiences or citizen science experiments in their older years. And then as they get into high school, you can connect some of those dots back to real conservation career opportunities and connect to local organizations. So the third picture here, the big one, is students learning to build some birdhouses. I think that's out in Ogallala, but that's on an internship that just happened a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago. But really sort of creating culminating experiences where students might be able to plug into any one of these throughout their time in after school, or they might be able to come in as a college student or as a high school student and contribute to them. All of this, though, is not exclusive to Beyond School Bells. So we have a lot of this that we offer ourselves, but we have also developed most of this through partnerships, some spread out over a couple of years, some recent. So this is a quick list of things that are partnerships that BSB does have. And I've put asterisks next to things that are not yet published on the BSB site, but partnerships that we've had. Oh no, that's the next slide. So everything with an asterisk here is a Beyond School Bells Center of Excellence. So those are programs or organizations, others that we have partnered with to develop materials specific to after school. Each of these with an asterisk, just one, has created something and put it on our website. And I'll show that in just a little bit. Each of the others are just partners that BSB has worked with to develop some of the materials that are on our site. And then here's a list of those pieces of curriculum. They're just in alphabetical order. But again, so the Bio Blitz, and I really like to highlight this one. This was one of the first environmental activities that I worked on. I also think it's one of the most common environmental activities. Everywhere has their own version of a Bio Blitz, which I think is wonderful. They can be and should be specific to wherever you are, whatever resources or outdoor spaces you have access to. So ours is split up into 4 sections: the habitat and plant life, soil life, aquatic life, and animal life. And you can run any one of those, or you can run all of them. And there's a lot of opportunities to tailor that to your space, but also to your time. So if you only have one afternoon, run through those activities, look over them quickly, and identify if you have a stream that's right next to your playground. That's a wonderful place to do aquatic life. If you don't have a stream and you only have a limited amount of time, maybe you should just do something like habitat and plant life. But you can really piece those things together. So that's actually not, it's the end of my slides, but I do also want to share my screen real quick to show how to get to all of this. Sorry, excuse my delay. Okay. Can I get a quick thumbs up if you can see my second screen?
Yes, we see the Beyond School Bells website now.
Perfect, thank you. So this is our website. If you go to bsb.org, or excuse me, beyondschoolbells.org, you'll see this is the top banner on all of our pages. If you click curriculum, it will take you to this page. If you then click on environmental ed, it'll open another tab, which takes you here. And this has all of the Beyond School Bells specific materials. So these are things that we have developed with our partners with college students, maybe by ourselves, and have piloted and tested and refined over, I mean, it sort of depends, but a period of years. Things like our wind energy, solar power. Here are the BioBlitz lessons I mentioned. There's a K3 version as well as a 4 or 5 version. This can also be scaled up though. So BioBlitz is based on citizen science. If you have high schoolers and you have a science teacher who really wants to catalog the biology of the area, you can use this and use it as kind of a basis. And then our triathlon. So those are things that are directly from Beyond School Bells. But I also really want to highlight, if you go to our website and you click on resources, click on toolkit, that will take you to our toolkit page. And then this is the Centers of Excellence tab. So here's our toolkit page, but if you click on Centers of Excellence, it will take you to this, which then has the list of our partners, links, contact information for others. So the partner slide that I showed earlier, I have everything that they have. So these are things that we have developed in partnerships, in tandem. Sometimes we have just worked with a couple people and said, you have a really cool idea. Can we partner and feature it on our website? So this is the culmination of those things. There's a civic engagement project with Civic Nebraska. They have their own service learning project that had 2 asterisks in the partnership slide because it's was just finished being developed. It's not fully published yet, but it is accessible. And there's a whole lot here. These are not specific to environmental education, but I like to point them out because there's a lot here that is, and a lot of the other resources, such as the high school staffing model, directly relate to how we support and how we advocate for running environmental ed. Here's just a couple examples of them. One's from the Wildlife Safari Park. So some of these things can be more useful to different parts of the state. So if you're closer to Ashland, you might have a greater chance of taking a field trip here. But if you are not, that doesn't mean that resources won't be available to you. You just can contact whomever operates those resources and ask about virtual connections. This is the Civic Nebraska site. So if you go to Civic Nebraska, Civic Youth Leadership, and then Educator Resources will take you to, so I'm running you through this because it's the new one. It's not, we don't have the link up on our site yet. But if you go to Service Learning Center, that will take you to their environmental service projects, civics learning, and they have an example. Where is it? It hasn't loaded yet. The environmental playground, excuse me, that they did this in Lee with a couple students out there and did a whole BioBlitz, but also did a couple of local advocacy and awareness projects to really start to understand some of the local wildlife and biology around Lee, and then use that information to advocate for green spaces and pollinator habitat and things like that. I'm also a huge fan of game and parks. So Beyond School Bells has partnered with Nebraska Game and Parks in the past to develop some of their lesson plans, and they have a ton, as you might imagine. Here's a couple. So Marsh Market. It's a very similar structure to the Beyond School Bells curriculum sort of setup, having a summary, some objectives, background, and their procedure. Ours is a little bit more condensed usually, but this is a really good outline that you can extend into multiple lessons if you want to, or run it all in one day. And then the last link I wanted to show was the museum kits through Moral Hall. So you can request for these to be sent to your, so there is a small fee depending. So you can get the shoebox kits for $20 a week. You sign up for them. They will send you the science kit depending on, different sections that you choose. If you really want to focus on tree trunks, maybe in the spring in preparation for Arbor Day, if you want to put together a triathlon experience, order a tree trunks kit from them, run the Beyond School Bells triathlon activities from our curriculum. And then we also send out trees every year. So there's a lot there. I really tried to mix in pretty much most of the Beyond School Bells materials. I'll put my email in the chat, but I wanted to save some time for questions or anything like that. Are there any questions?
Dakota, do you think that environmental education activities like this are something you can do for all the kids in your program, or is it better to run it like a club so you have a smaller group?
I think I think of course you can run it with anyone and everyone. That's kind of would always be my approach. I do think, and we have seen that it a little bit depends, right? So if you have students and you have space for some outdoor activities, it is wonderful to run a bio blitz with all of your students, especially if you have the staff that can sort of oversee something like that. But if it's a little bit more unique and space might be more limited for something like a garden, you can have a garden club and really allow students to self-select into that. And we've seen a lot of success with that. And that also allows you to then identify the students who stand out and really kind of show their own self-interest. And particularly as they become older youth and older students in your programs, they're great leaders to then re-engage.
Thanks.
I have heard of Know Your Well. So it's a question from Reed. Have you heard of Know Your Well through the Nebraska Water Center? It's a citizen science program aimed at groundwater quality. I have heard of that. I've heard great things. I've not personally done it or participated in it, but I actually, one of my colleagues from grad school, an individual I was a co-assistant with, she works with that program. So I have heard of it. I've heard good things. I did also want to highlight, and I should have done it when the slide was still up, but of those partnerships that Beyond School Bells has, there are a couple that are in the works and almost finished. But the reason that they had 2 asterisks is because we don't have them published yet. But those would be the partnership with Spring Creek Prairie Audubon Center. So I'm working with them to develop a conservation ologist career unit. So activities for middle school students to teach about the different science careers related to conservation. We'll be able to hopefully pilot that, maybe a couple lessons in this fall, and then hopefully full units in the spring. So if that is of interest to you, please reach out to me and we can coordinate pilots. When there are opportunities like that, BSB can provide funding for the materials needed, staffing if it's needed. We really like to encourage high school students to engage as the staff in programs like that. There was another one. The other is renewable energies. So BSB is putting together a renewable energies project. If you are interested in that, we will have pilots coming hopefully again this fall with full pilots in the spring as well. And then food systems. So every year, hopefully now, I think we're in year 2, but BSB supports what's called Grow Nebraska. And that is through a partnership with the National Geographic Foundation or survey, I think, National Geographic Education. They have what they call the Slingshot Project, where they challenge students to identify a environmental issue or challenge that impacts them locally, come up with a solution to that, create a 60-second video about their solution, and then submit that to National Geographic. Beyond School Bells wants to take that a step further, at least for after-school programs here in our state, and support whatever those ideas are that students come up with. So that the example of the food packaging waste is an example from that project. If you're interested in that, Beyond School Bells also supports programs and groups of students who want to pursue Slingshot initiative submission, but then also continue their project. So, and again, sorry, that's just like a lot of information, but obviously these are things I'm interested in. So if you are also interested in them, please let me know.
Thank you, Dakota. You're Passion really does come through when you're talking about this and getting kids outdoors. I love it. Are there any other questions? Well, thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you in Omaha in September for the after school conference.
There'll be a couple environmental ed sessions, so
Yeah.
we'll see you there.
I have a strong environmental education component to the conference.
Mhm.